and welcome to Adult Writers Club, also known as Advanced Concepts. I do a Teen Writers Club as well. You can absolutely watch those videos. Those are just a lot more simplified, either simpler concept or simplified versions of the concept. These I'm going to be talking about a lot more difficult to deal with concepts, a lot more hard concepts. I'm just starting up this program, so please like and subscribe to the channel. The more viewers and things like that I have, the more likely it is that I continue this program. I will be publishing a video every Thursday, and at the end of this month, instead of having a YouTube lesson, I'll be hosting an in-person meeting for the Adult Writers Club, and you can join us in person on March 30th, 2023 from 8 to 9 p.m. More details on that later. Today we are going to be talking about what to do when your plot is completely derailed, and I'm going to give some examples with Squirrel, Armies, and Hippopotamus, Vikings. These are actually concepts that came up during Dungeons and Dragons, but these concepts can easily be applied to writing as well. With characters, generally, I find when I do not plot things out ahead of time, characters can run off with the plot in a direction that I totally don't anticipate, and then I am left going, I had no plans for this. I don't know what to do. And that happened a lot more when I was not plotting things out. I'm generally more of a plotter now. However, D&D, there is no possible way to plot for what some of these kids come up with. As a result of that, I've learned how to work with less plotting in writing and in storytelling. As a result, here's the story. So, I created this beautiful world. There's this evil bad guy, and, there's only so many ways to defeat him. You got these horde of zombies coming at you, all these different things. And the kid comes to me, you know who you are, Wobbles? Thank you for challenging me. And he's wandering through the forest, and he asks if he can find some squirrels. And I'm like, that's odd. We have the apocalypse going on, and you want to find some squirrels, but sure, find some squirrels. And then he's like, I want to find some metal. Okay, I guess you find some metal. I had him do a couple rolls and whatnot for those of you who know D&D, but elsewise. Find some metal, find some squirrels, and then he starts rolling, and he says, I want to roll to train. I'm like, train what? It's like, the squirrels. And this is how I got an army of sword-wielding, armor-bearing squirrels in my D&D campaign. I absolutely love them. I think it's a fun idea. I think it's fabulous, but it's something I could never have planned for. Not in a million years did I ever think, yeah, they're gonna go into the forest and create an army of squirrels. Nope. As a result of that, I had to work around him and work around what he wanted to do. Meanwhile, I had a very similar experience with Hippopotamus, Vikings. I had this particular player, Mew, save a group of pygmy hippos from a witch, and this grandfather hippo comes up with this beard, and he says, thank you for saving us from this witch. She's been keeping us prisoner for years. And all of a sudden, Mew realizes he has a beard, and he's like, I want to braid his beard. Okay, cool, you braid his beard. And then he says, I want to teach them how to fight and become a herd of hippopotamus Vikings. I was completely blown away by that one, but here we are with Squirrel, Armies, and Hippopotamus, Vikings. So, as a result, and these are in two separate campaigns, as a result, you never know when your characters are just going to run off with your campaign and not really follow the plot that you had originally intended. As a result, I have some tips and tricks to ameliorate problems when it comes to characters not wanting to do exactly as you planned or exactly as you wanted with the plot. So, the first thing that I would absolutely recommend is when it comes to your characters, make sure that your characters are allowed to run their course. They're allowed to do whatever's natural to them, especially if you're not a plotter. Feel free to just let them go. However, if you have a specific direction you want them to go, like you want them to go defeat the bad guy, but for some reason, they don't want to leave necessarily, give your characters what they want. And by that, I don't mean what they actually want. what your characters probably want is happily ever after, easy roses, and good times, right? That's all we generally want. Generally, as people, we, wish we could live in a mansion, relax every day, and have money grow on trees, right? We wish that life was so much easier than it is, but it's hard, right? As a result, you need to make sure that you give the characters what they want as an incentive. So you dangle it in front of them. You say, hey, okay, well, my character's not doing what I want. Why aren't they doing what I want? Well, they have this fabulous spouse at home and they don't want to leave their spouse. Okay, well then how about you kidnap their spouse and you have them go on an adventure to go save their spouse? No, that sounds like damsel in distress, but hey, you can do it creatively. And there's a reason why it's done. It's because love is very powerful, and so if they want to go save their love, gosh darn it, they're going to go save their love, and in the meantime, they might want to get revenge on the villain. That's conveniently going to solve your problems. As a result of that, you now have your plot back on track. The great example of this in media is Luke Skywalker. He clearly did not want to become a Jedi, right? So he did not want to leave his home. He kept telling Obi-Wan, you know what, look, I'm going to go back to being a farmer, go away. So, spoiler warning, for those of you who haven't watched Star Wars somehow by now, his aunt and uncle are killed, right? Which gives him a desire to seek vengeance against those that killed them, and it also leaves nothing to tie him down to this planet, right? He didn't want to leave Tatooine because he had ties to this planet. Now he has no ties. He has nowhere to go except with Obi-Wan. He has this desire for vengeance now. You're taking his prior desires, which is comfy, cozy, and you're giving him no desire to stay here. Therefore, his desires have to change and alter. You have to make sure that they're properly motivated as a character. If you have a character who is living a rich, gorgeous life and they are so happy with themselves and the universe, they aren't going to want to leave unless you give them a reason to leave or a reason to get out. This is often why people force them to by having some big evil bad guy, like I said, kill off the parents, kill someone they love. If they're after something else like money or power, the only way to get money or power is by defeating this other villain. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about this. The next thing that you can do is rethink your plot. Your character ran off in that direction for a reason. It could be because they want to go in that direction and because it's the easy way. Or it could be because it's more interesting. They went to a different town than you thought? What if that town's actually far more interesting than you expected? Is there something going on in that town? Is there a murder? Is there a witch living there? Make it so that it's more intriguing. Do you really have to have this cool scene that you imagined happen in a specific place? Or can you migrate it to the place where the character wants to be? Or if the character really has to defeat this one villain in order to realize that they're not the actual villain, there's a bigger villain, Do they really have to defeat them if they don't want to? What if they just capture them and torture them until they reveal that information? Or what if they don't want to kill them or hurt them? And so instead they are, the very righteous hero. They're the very righteous hero. And they decide to let the villain live, but only after they have gotten the information that they need out of the villain through other means. Truth serum, something like that. Nothing violent. Let the character do what they're going to do, but if what they're doing is throwing you off, then be willing to work with your characters. This is ultimately when I find when it's coming to being a dungeon master, but also absolutely when it comes to writing without a strict plot and being more of a pantser/gardener. Pantser being flying by the seat of your pants, gardener being just kind of let it grow wild. Those are both metaphors that I've heard utilized in writing settings all the time. Some writers aren't always familiar with them, though, so I like to give definitions for why they are there. If you are either of those types, or technically the same thing, different names, that is okay. It just means that you're going to have to work with your characters as a team, rather than you are the author, you direct the plot, you do what I say, character. No, this is about teamwork. You have to take what they want, take what you want, and find a bridge, find a gap in the middle that you can work with. All right, the last thing you need to think about, and I say need because it applies to need, is what do they really need? What do you really need? For your plot to work, do you really have to have them fall in love with this particular person? Or is it just because you think they're cute and your character actually desperately wants to be with a different character? That's okay. Find out why that character wants to be with the other character. Is it because of the fact that they have trauma in their background and that particular person that you think is so attractive is actually not very good for them, but you think that they're attractive, so you think that they should belong together? Or is that character doing creepy stuff like, I don't know, stalking them, watching them while they sleep? I've heard that's a Twilight thing. Haven't read it. I don't know. And you're like, oh, actually, that's not attractive. But you're sitting there thinking, oh, how romantic. As an author, you got to talk to your characters and let your characters tell you, dude, that's not okay. Or, hey, this other person actually is really attractive. And that's okay. It's okay if stories go a different way, especially because oftentimes that can lead to even further discoveries. If your character says, hey, I want to fall in love with X guy, and you're like, I planned for Y guy, that's okay. Let it happen. They are ultimately going to fall in love with who they are going to fall in love with. And even if you don't want them to fall in love with that person, it could be the villain. It could be the fact that they don't know that this is the villain and this is his secret identity, and they are totally in love with the villain, and the villain's totally in love with them, or manipulating them. That's not your choice, unfortunately. Ultimately, that's their choice. And you have to work with them, and you cannot spoil it for them. You can't just tell them, don't do that. Let them do it, let them make mistakes. Maybe if they fall in love with the villain, and then they realize they're the villain, they can utilize it to their own advantage, and even though the villain knows that they're the hero, they can feign that they're still innocent and that they're just in love with them, but in reality they're trying to figure out what the villain is planning. Or they can utilize it and find out just in time to avoid a trap. Or it can build emotional depth and help them to grow even more as a character as they realize the depth of betrayal that they're about to experience. Or there are so many examples. I was going to give another example, but there are a plethora of examples is the point. If you have any questions about how to rethink your plot, giving characters what they want, or what do you really need for this book, feel free to email me at the email down below in the description of this video. Also feel free to look at my resume as an editor. I am experienced with helping people with plotting and developmental problems and things like that. So if you are, as a pantser, having an issue moving forward because of the fact that you are stuck on a particular concept, or your character has gone astray and you don't know how to fix it, or you are trying to work with your character, what you're finding is just leading you further and further off topic, off the plot, that is okay. I'd be more than happy to try and talk with you and work with you about how we can either get back on track, find a compromise, or completely throw that plot away and find a new plot. Because sometimes I find that's ultimately what I've had to do with a few books, where books that I have written and worked on in the past or edited in the past, I've had to talk about, hey, let's go a completely different direction with this ending, or let's take this ending but tweak it a little bit. And that's just because sometimes things don't always work out the way you expect. You might want the character to do this particular thing, but that thing is actually putting it in the way of making the plot as cool as it could be. Or you are prioritizing the subplot when in reality it should be the main plot. We're going to talk about that more in a different video, but that can absolutely happen. When in doubt, ultimately, I say brainstorm. Brainstorming is going to be your biggest tip and your best friend. You know how they do those things back in school where they have the circle, and then you bop off and circle, and bop off, and you can say plot, and then say character, A, and so on. Yeah, spelled character wrong. But you can brainstorm ideas and try to find the optimal ending, an optimal solution for your problems. that's going to be the biggest tip that I could possibly give, but I am more than happy to help with that brainstorming process, because sometimes you get stuck, and this is oftentimes where writer's block 6 in for those who like to be gardeners or pantsers, is that they get stuck because the plot goes awry and then they don't know how to fix it. So I'm more than happy to help with that. I hope you enjoyed this little lesson on plot derailment, Squirrel, Armies, and Hippopotamus, Vikings. If you have any questions, please use the email in the description below. Subscribe for more Adult Writers Club lessons every Thursday and once a month. Again, we will be doing an in-person meeting together. This month it will be March 30th, 2023 from 8 to 9 p.m. Thank you for watching. Bye!